All right, we'll go ahead and get started, folks. Welcome. Um, it seems like maybe one of the central challenges in all of this spirituality business is kind of imagining that the thing that whatever it is however we might describe what we're aspiring to come to realize, the nature of reality, nature of God, all these different words, freedom, and so on and so forth, ground of being, well-being, the different things we're looking for as humans, that we just have a very long, well-established habit of imagining that those things, that freedom, say, looks a certain way, that it feels a certain way. And so right away from that standpoint, we've kind of split the world up. And then we imagine that when it doesn't look the way we would like it to look or think it should look or feel, and so on, that we equate that with having we've lost touch with, we lost touch with presence, we've lost touch with God, lost touch with reality. And this turns out to not be the case, that that there really is no losing touch with reality, because it's the only thing to ever be in touch with. It's the only thing that's going on. It just happens to look like all of this. It happens to look like everything. So with that kind of in mind, I'd just like to invite you, just as we're sitting here right now for a few moments, to really it sounds silly to put it this way, but I will put it this way anyway, to let reality, to let the absolute reality be everything, since it is everything. Let it be every flavor of experience, no matter how it's showing up. Let it be that. It is that. Let it be every texture of experience, no matter how it might be being described. Let it be every thought, because it is every thought. It is the energy fueling every thought. The intelligence that's showing up as everything, as every experience. So rather than trying to define it as certain experiences, in a sense, limit it to certain definitions and descriptions and flavors and textures, let it be every flavor and every texture and every experience, which it is. Just as the sea is every wave, no matter the shape or form or texture or quality of the waves, reality is very much like this sea in its vastness and its openness and aliveness. And it is being all of this. It is being each one of us. It is being everything that is arising, everything that is appearing, everything that's being tasted, everything that's being touched. So there's absolutely no entering or exiting it, because it is this moment just as it is. Again, no matter how the mind might be characterizing it. It's even all the characterizations, all the interpretations. Let it be all of those as well. In other words, any reaction, any way we might be trying to make sense of this, that is also the movement of this single reality, this life. Let it be every circumstance, every unfolding moment. And so from this vantage, the vantage of this mystery that is being all things and moving as all things and radiating and shining forth as all moments, there's no correct experience to have. There's no right or wrong experience to have. There is just what's here. And what's here is the absolute reality showing up as this, it's this particular flavor and texture and quality. So no experience or circumstance can bring us closer to it, because every experience and every circumstance is it. So seeking after particular kinds of experiences may be a fine thing to do as a human. Nothing wrong with it. But it's not going to bring you closer to the truth, to reality, because reality is already the case. This already is. The beingness of this moment, the aliveness, the presence of this moment already is, isn't it? Here it is. And so trying to shape the moment into have it look a particular way or feel a particular way or have your perception be a certain way is completely not necessary and has a tendency to, pardon me, I'm just going to mute you guys. One second here.
Wow.
Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, you know, that's the beauty too, is that every seeming distraction from reality, there's no such thing as distractions, because every sound, everything that unfolds is it. So that's how simple it is. And all the experiences and why this is the case, I should say, is that all of the experiences that are the upwelling of each moment, again, regardless of its particular, how it seems to be showing up, it is very much like a wave-like emergence from the sea of being, the sea of reality. And so, as they say in the Buddhist tradition, nothing has any independent existence from the ground of being. Everything is the very ground of existence. Nothing has its own separate existence from that, any more than a wave has a separate existence from the sea. The wave is the sea. It is none other than the sea. And so no experience can depart. You know, you never leave, no matter, you know, you just be in a complete state of inner turmoil in a way you would describe as inner turmoil, but actually that is the absolute reality. So yes, from one vantage, all the descriptions and seeming distinctions between this and that, all the ways it just seems to be different. One thing seems to be different from another thing. One texture and flavor of experience seems different from another texture and flavor of experience is true, but from another perspective, it's only half of the story, that everything is actually the same. Everything is the same absolute reality. Everything is none other than the ocean of existence itself. So it's a matter of perspective. From one perspective, that wave looks different than that wave. And from another perspective, they're both the same sea, aren't they? Completely inseparable. It's our descriptions that make it seem as if there's somehow something's missing about the moment, something's limited about the moment, lacking about the moment. And from one vantage, it can feel that way, it can seem that way, certainly. But those descriptions really rest upon this belief that things have a kind of independent existence apart from the absolute reality from which they're arising and emerging, whatever that absolute reality is. There's no name for that. There's no name for where all of this is coming out. What is all of this coming out of? What is this moment coming out of? There's absolutely no words for that. I mean, it's completely beyond comprehension, right? In the Tibetan tradition, they call it the basic state, but what does that even mean? It's really just trying to point to the basis of everything, which is ungraspable, pure mystery. What is the basis of everything? There's absolutely no way to comprehend that. But the basis of everything is the basis of everything. And so everything is its basis, fundamentally, whatever that is. This is the paradoxical thing that reality seems to be showing up as these separate pieces, doesn't it? Separate objects, separate phenomena, sound, light, color, feeling, thought, right? We describe these things as if they're separate things, but our experience shows up as a complete whole. There's actually no clear lines dividing one thing from another. You can't find them. It's absolutely seamless, isn't it? It's completely seamless. There's not, I mean, it's just the most amazing thing. Like, look at sound and light, right? These two seemingly separate phenomena that we're experiencing right now. They seem like they're existing in their own little separate domains, kind of, right? But they're not really intruding on each other. Like, sound's not getting in the way of light and light's not getting in the way of sound, right? Like they're kind of hanging out in their own little worlds almost, experientially. And yet, can you see the way in which they're seamless, sound and light? Where does one end and the other begin? There's not a gap there. There's the end of this phenomena and the beginning of this phenomena. There's this little gap there that's kind of like when we used to like have, coloring books, and you'd have like lines and you would fill in the colors for the different objects that you were coloring in your coloring book. They had like a line around them, didn't they? Delineating this piece of the object from another piece of the object, right? So you fill in where the lines are, but there's no lines anywhere. Isn't that amazing? There's no lines anywhere separating one thing from another. Find them. Can't find them. There's no lines separating one thing from another. Not an experience, maybe conceptually. Conceptually, we might say, well, I'm separate from you. I'm separate from my computer screen visually. I can look and here's an object here, but it's like we're drawing like imaginary lines around the objects. Like, I look over there and there's a table with chairs, and I've literally, like, consciousness has literally drawn a line that separates the chair and the edge of the chair from the space around the chair. But there's no line there. Where's the line? It's crazy. There's no line there. No lines anywhere. That would be a good title of a song. I have to write that song. No lines anywhere. And so there's no line between you and the absolute reality either. This is why you are the absolute reality. What else could you possibly be? There's not an outline around you that demarcates where whatever you imagine yourself to be, including the body, where's the line? Like in a coloring book, like there's color inside the lines. There is no line. Your body doesn't have an end. Neither does whatever you think of as your personality or your mind or your consciousness. No lines anywhere. Just pure openness, unobstructed openness. Nothing blocking anything else. Nothing in the way of anything else. Nothing obstructing anything else. No boundaries. No demarcations. And that feeling of there not really being a subject in a world of objects, just feel that for a moment, that there's no line there. And feel the ease of that. Notice the nourishing quality of that, recognizing that there's no line anywhere. It's just complete fullness, aliveness. Wholeness. Boundlessness. No limitations anywhere, actually. Nothing, not one thing struggling with another thing. That's why it's completely at peace. Because there's not two things with some kind of like negotiation going on. There aren't two things, so it's complete peace, complete equanimity. Just reality just being itself. Perfectly, always perfectly. Even in its confusion, it's perfectly being that. Even in its agitation, if that's there, it's being perfectly that. Yeah, it's just let yourself just drink from the waters of that. It's just so we are drinking from the waters of it all the time, actually. And there's nothing else we're ever drinking from is the waters of this amazingness that is everything. Even the difficult moments, we're drinking from the waters then as well. Because it's the same water. Just like when it's a massive storm at sea, it's still the same water. Whether the sea is calm or turbulent, it's still the same water. So yeah, at the level of descriptions, there's the turbulence and there's the lack of turbulence, and we like the lack of turbulence. So when it's turbulent, we try to get back to the lack of turbulence, don't we? I don't like the turbulence. I want to come back to the calmness. That's understandable. That's at the level of the description, though. But at the level of the sea itself, there's nothing but complete well-being, whether seemingly turbulent or not turbulent. I could say it's sort of getting to the depths, not operating just at the surface, where all the agitation is, but that metaphor is not quite right, because if we look at the sea again, there's not, remember, there's no lines anywhere. So the surface is the depth, isn't it? Where's the depth of the sea? The depth of the sea is the entire sea. There's not like a surface, and then now I'm not at the surface anymore. I've entered the depths. No, it's a continuum, isn't it? Now we could say our experience is experienced sometimes as a kind of spectrum, we could say. And from one part of the spectrum, we can seem to be very much caught in all the interpretations and descriptions, including like agitation and unrest. But we can discover another part of the spectrum, and that is the part of the spectrum that is just the sheer presence of it, irrespective of the description, the sheer presence of it, the life of it, the vitality of it. Well, that's probably a good place to stop for now. I mean, for me to stop.
Good morning, John.
Hey, Michael.
Great to hear you. I wanted to explore with you
Mm-hmm.
in Advaita is often, I don't know if this goes back to Shankara, but one of the early Advaita proponents described reality as one without a second, this single sphere of the self nature. And it was on YouTube. I don't remember which teacher. The other day I saw a gentleman. He was speaking. He was comparing Dzogchen and Advaita. He said Dzogchen does not establish anything as inherently existing. I forgot how he put it, but Advaita describes the one, the self, or the power of Brahman. But Dzogchen does not even assert that nothing could be established as truly or ultimately existing. I was having that. I asked Peter about that yesterday. What is that? What can be truly established? What can be understood as being truly established or truly present? So if there's this non-established field of mind or presence, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yeah, good question.
Whatever it is, then the factors that cause it to be, cause it to appear, or to be persist, because experience to appear in the conventional, painful way. It would seem that any movement of mind that reifies that schism of the emphasis on self or other, anything that reinforces that dichotomy. I wanted to explore that with you. Because this morning, listening to you, what actually came to mind is if there's no mind, if mind itself cannot be definitively established,
right,
then who is there to even be mindful? It's like that the effort to be mindful or aware would seem to be an unnecessary superimposition on this presence.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's true of any spiritual practice, that I think it could work a couple different ways. It could reinforce the resolvability of things, the seeming discreteness and independent existence of things, right? It can seem to do
Yeah.
that, whether it's a self or even reinforcing, the idea of there's something called meditation, or there's all of this stuff. I mean, getting from a place of non-awareness to more awareness, all these things, that are concepts essentially about ways of describing something that's ultimately indescribable. So yeah, the practices can reinforce that the descriptions actually have some, that you're actually describing something. In other words, or I could put it another way, that the way we're characterizing things and the way they get characterized as part of spiritual teachings can lead us to believe that we're pulling it off, that we're succeeding in characterizing something. We're succeeding at pinning down what it is based on the way we're labeling it. And that's one thing that practices can unfortunately sort of reinforce that. But it is possible, maybe depending on how we're engaging with the practices, to have them sort of pull the rug out from underneath all of that describing, and help us to come to see that if we look, we can see that the descriptions don't hold up, that things cannot be pinned down. And whether it's what the thing we call meditation, or the self who's meditating, or the goals that we're trying to realize through meditation, none of those things can be pinned down. So there's just this indescribability and inconceivability. And that's that, and that can, and certainly, I mean, my last book, was filled with all sorts of little inquiries, i.e. meditations, that were designed to try to evoke that or to reveal that, rather than reinforce the idea that there's all these separate pieces, to reveal that there's not separate pieces that can be pinned down. And so there's just this inconceivable whole that is appearing as all the seeming pieces and descriptions. And clearly, because descriptions there's an actuality to the descriptions. I could describe the flavor of a certain food, right? And there's an actuality to it. It's like, it's definitely, it's definitely sweet. I know what sweet is. It has an actuality to it, doesn't it?
Right.
I would never deny that for a second. But this is the paradoxical nature of phenomena, is that they appear very specific. Sweet is not sour, is not salty, very specific. It's exactly what it is. It's sweet. I know what sweet is. But when I just stop for a moment and I investigate what sweet is, I will always come up empty-handed. I will never get to the bottom of what sweet is, and yet it's still there, which is really a curious thing. It doesn't make it go away, but I just can't get to the bottom of it. And that's the discovery of this, you could say, common element in all the descriptions, is that they're ultimately descriptionless. They're beyond description. And that seems odd, because it seems so specifically it seems so clearly to be something definite, right? In a certain way, from a certain perspective. Like sadness is definitely sadness, and it's not joy. And don't ever try to tell me they're the same thing, right?
Right.
Fair enough. Right. But this is the curious thing, and this is just the magic show, I call it, of reality. It like shows up as flavors and textures and qualities that are seemingly different and distinct from one another. No question about it. This is the display. This is all the diversity of life, all the color and form and shape, and the whole magic show of reality is unthinkable. It's like, a Mozart piano sonata is not the same as, heavy metal music. They're very different, aren't they? And yet, what are they made of? Well, they're both made of sound, aren't they? And what's sound made of? Well, now you're basically thrust into the mystery of what heavy metal is made of and what a Mozart sonata is made of. Ultimately, you end up in the same place, which is, I have no fucking clue what they're made of. Pardon my French. It's like, but this is astonishing. It's like, it's just the same thing. I can feel like I'm an individual. I'm an individual person, and I'm not the same as you, Michael. We have different life streams, with different histories, and I'm not going to deny any of that. And all of it collapses under investigation at the same time. And like I say, I look and see and tell me, can you find any lines anywhere? Just look in your experience. So are there lines, or are not they're not lines dividing one thing from another, one phenomena from another? Well, in a sense, it's neither and it's both. There's lines and there's no lines, and it's ultimately beyond either of those ways of characterizing it. And from my perspective, that's what freedom is all about. It's freedom from all the implications of the descriptions and concepts, and so there's just pure freedom in every phenomena. Is nothing but complete, absolute freedom.
So the basis of reality, or reality itself, exists. Like the rope exists, but it's misperceived as a snake. So reality exists, but it's misperceived as being the way that it appears, the way that it seems, and the way that it actually exists are different in the minds of most beings, because of just the power of habit, the ongoing stream of interpretation and reification, trying to pin down in a hopefully useful, helpful way the cause of the misinterpretation, the perceiving of the snake.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, it's helpful to remember that the very intelligence that's created the universe, that's creating this moment, is also what's creating interpretation and conceptualizing. So it's the doing of the universe. It's very impersonal in that sense. It's like, I mean, you and I would never know how to, in the way we might have also be able to learn how to, that 2 + 2 = 4, in some kind of conscious mind way. We could learn how to do that. When you close your eyes and you open your eyes and a room appears with names for all those objects that you seem to be seeing, that is interpretation, isn't it? You and I would never know how to do that. Like, I have no idea how to interpret the world, and yet interpretation is occurring. So that's almost, the obvious proof of how impersonal this is and how much it's being done just by the force of the universe itself. And so it's helpful to keep that in mind. It can help to take us out of the tendency to kind of see that as like, that's the problem, somehow, that we're doing, and it's like our mistake. No, it's not. It's just what life does. Life just is rendering itself, trying to render itself, trying to understand itself, trying to put itself into various frameworks. It's one of its modes, one of its pastimes, it would seem. So, but yeah, I mean, and to your question about the habitual nature of this, yeah, I think it's just a matter of, one of the functions of language and concepts is that it sort of seemingly simplifies all the complexity in a certain way, right? It's kind of like, take some complex, well, every experience is unthinkably complex, but, you say, how are you feeling right now, John? And I'm like, well, I feel inspired, all right? Or it's like, okay, so I've just tried to put the experience into some conceptual box that I call an inspiration, right?
Right.
Okay, now what is inspiration actually? It's completely beyond comprehension. There's no way to, it's just a whole universe, and every experience is a whole universe. So we try to put it, or life puts it in these frameworks, and they're useful. They're useful sort of modes, ways that we can take all this complexity and put it into some sort of seemingly coherent framework, and then communicate about it and make sense of it in some way. So it's like, it has its, I mean, I'm doing that right now. I'm using language to try to convey something that can't be conveyed very easily with language. And but it's almost like, Peter loves to say, it's like, words are indicative of something, but they're not definitive, They indicate something. Like if I tell you I feel happy, it indicates something about my experience, seemingly, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really define it. It's not definitive. It doesn't fully capture it. So I think the habit that we have is just sort of imagining that because we have language and concepts, we've basically captured what this is, that we know what it is. Oh, I know what this is. I'm sitting in a room on a Zoom call, and I'm a human being living inside a body, and again, the list is endless, all the ways that I seem to know what's going on here. But if we just start to pay attention to our experience in some of the ways that I invite people to do, we can begin to notice that it doesn't hold up under scrutiny, and that this is not what we think it is. It's much more. It's not a diminishment of what it is. The discovery that it's not what we think it is really an enhancement of it, because it's more vast, it's more information dense, it's richer, it's deeper, it's vaster, it's unlimited. That's what it really is. It's not. Yeah, and so that's the good news, that the more than we think it is truly is more. It's an incomprehensibly rich, it's just dripping with meaningfulness and richness and lusciousness and vibrancy all the time. Every single moment is like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm struck. I'm really struck right now by how the immediacy, the say non-striving, already present, nothing to do, nowhere to go aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
That how that at least right now in this moment undermines the sense of goal orientation that there's something that needs to that I somehow need to be other than I am, not
Right.
in the sense of my own individual uh, self, but the I amness, or
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Right, and as I was saying at the very outset, that habit we have to associate certain states, certain experiences, certain circumstances with either the presence or absence of well-being, let's say, that's the linchpin right there. That because we imagine that. I wrote this the other day. It was, how did I put it? I said, we are wave-like emanations of the ocean of existence. And because of that, because we are wave-like emanations we are the ocean of existence, no experience or circumstance can bring us closer to that.
Right.
Because it's what we are, and every experience and circumstance is also that. So that just stops us in our tracks, because it's already accomplished, it's already resolved, it already is itself. And trying to have a particular kind of experience or get our consciousness to look a certain way doesn't actually do anything, because it already is itself. The ocean is the ocean, no matter how it's looking. So it can't become more of itself. It always is all of itself. And
John,
that could just be the great relaxation, because it doesn't mean that we can't still, as humans, try to have more experiences that are, resonant with what we'd like to have more of in our lives, our preferences, right? Like, right? I mean, to increase pleasure and reduce experiences that we associate with pain. That project, if you will, can continue on with no problem. But we can also have this sort of simultaneous growing recognition that that is all still operating at the level of description. And then beneath the level of description, if you will, at the level of indescribability, we never depart from the sea of well-being, because there's only that. There is nothing but that. And so there's no returning from it, there's no departing from it, there's just that. And
yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And one more thing, this will be the last thing. I don't want to take up too much time. Some other people chime in, but I my sense, this is just my own subjective take on it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was back at the Insight Meditation Center, and actually yesterday I was hearing in another Zoom meeting, I was hearing some teachings on loving kindness and metta,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I tried to do that. I tried to do the
Mm-hmm.
metta meditation. May all beings be happy.
Yeah.
And it always seemed contrived. It always seemed
It is
sort of
contrived.
pretentious. Like, you know, I'm somebody, and I'm going to wish other beings
Right.
happiness. What for me, what seems to bring about the the the, the, the benevolent feeling is not that I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to send out loving
Mm-hmm.
kindness, but that a sense that the I doesn't, the I is not something absolute in the sense of um, uh, that that was just what you were saying, that the ocean, that I am the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and that other beings are
Mm-hmm.
part of what I am. That
Right.
sense of unity.
Well, and that's the
But
difference of like, I when I teach my grad students about acceptance, because it's a big topic, and also sort of by extension, kind of compassion. Um, I make this distinction between kind of a personal acceptance that we can cultivate, or love, or kindness, and the one that already is the case, that the very nature of reality is pure love and pure compassion. And
yeah,
so if you feel yourself as a separate individual right now, like I am Michael or I am John, and that's fine. I mean, that's an aspect of reality, to feel ourselves as John and Michael. But we can also recognize that whatever this is, this life form we appear to be, is completely inseparable from all of life. Again, there's no lines, as I was saying at the beginning of our time together. And just to feel there's
yeah,
just this fluid, seamless, boundless sea of existence. That sea is inclusive of everything and is completely harmonized with everything, because it is everything. And that's the loving kindness, if you will. That's the radical allowing and acceptance of everything as it is, because everything is itself. So that's an embrace that's already the case, and
yeah.
it's the most powerful. It's the force of love that has no conditions on it. Just like the sun doesn't go, well, I'm going to shine over there but not over there. The sun just shines, doesn't it? So the
Yeah,
sun the sun of, do you know what I
yeah,
mean? That's
yeah,
a
I do.
really, it's just like the light of awareness. I could try to cultivate awareness, and then sometimes I can feel like I lose that awareness, and then I can try to get it back, and that's fine. But then there's this other, like, transpersonal awareness that's just, the light is on, and the light of existence is on. The light of awareness is shining forth spontaneously, whether I'm trying to cultivate it or not. It's shining. It's like
Yeah,
I wrote not too long ago, trying to be aware is like lighting a match, in the middle of a field with a blazing sun shining. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like the whole universe is lit up. And I'm like my little John trying to be aware. It's hysterical. The whole universe is
yeah,
aware. And so that
yeah,
universal, I mean, that's the real meta practice. That's the practice of loving kindness, is to see that and to feel how powerful that is, and how, I would say, one of its sort of primal qualities feels like this just boundless, ceaseless, relentless love for everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's really a different kind of meta. That's one
yeah,
that doesn't come and
yeah.
go.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very beautiful, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Very, very, very great this morning.
Always
Thank
great
you.
to hear from you.
Thanks.
Hey, John, I think you should put the Mozart and the heavy metal quote in your next book.
I never, that was a new one.
I wrote it down for you. If you wanna ever remember it, I have it written down for you.
That's right. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to try to come up with different ways to
I'm a musician too, so
characterize something that just is beyond characterization. But
just as you said, you know, um, when you were talking about being able to grasp, or understand, what sweet means, it just came up for me in that moment. Like, so the seeker in me is always striving to grasp and to
Mhm.
realize this truth that is going to be, that through the mind and through intellectualizing. And
Mhm.
so I was like, just as you said that, it's like, well, what if what if your seeking is to know to be able to control and grasp and understand sweetness? What if that's your ultimate
Mhm.
drive? And it's like, well, that in that moment, it was like, well, sweetness can, there's this bar of chocolate and there's this thing, sweetness. And, so I'm going to try to realize it and understand it and awaken to it. And it's like, that in that moment, it was so clear, like, just everything falls away. It keeps falling away and falling away. And it just resonated so much, that getting a little aha moment that, like,
Mhm.
this, what this is, what's doing the seeking is being sought. The seeker is this is it. And it's going to continue to fall away under, back into itself, which is just indescribable. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying that, the image came to me, which I've used before, is like when you're trying to find what the sweetness is, or the sourness, or the saltiness of experience, whether it's food or life, and you like go to try to find, like, okay, well, what is it? What makes sweetness sweet? What is the essence of sweetness? Like, you're going to get to the bottom of it, what that damn thing is, that experience. You're going to know it. Finally, you're going to know it with certainty. And it's like a receding horizon, right? You keep walking to the horizon and you never get there, do you? So you just keep going. It's like, I know if I keep looking hard enough, I'll find what it is. It'll finally show me what it is. But no, what it shows you is that there is no finding what it is, because it's too infinite. And that turns out to be the finding, is that you can't find it. Whether it's yourself, or anything about any experience, or what the world is, or anything, it doesn't matter. You end up in the same place, which is not knowing. That's why Krishnamurti wrote his book, Freedom from the Known. That's what he was talking about.
That's why every time I get a little glimpse or a taste, it's like I cannot stop laughing, just like that's because it's just so, it's like it's comical in a sense, like, and then it's cute in a sense, and then I can observe my ego just searching and seeking and doing this whole big play and drama, and it's I can see it, acknowledge it, and appreciate it, and it's but it's just,
See,
I don't know.
because and here's the amazing thing, Chris, is that even what you and I might describe, or anyone might describe as seeking, okay, well, what's that? It's just like sugar and sweetness. What is seeking? I mean, really, actually. Well, it's also infinity, so it's not a problem either. You see, it's as beautiful as anything else. That's the key, is that to realize that things are not what we imagine them to be, based on language and concepts. It's always more. Pam, were you going to say something earlier? I thought I heard your voice.
I love your coloring book analogy. The
lines.
putting lines around, and that was so helpful, because my watchword of the last month or so has been, I'm distracted. I'm too distracted to be at peace, or I'm too distracted to focus on a book, or my word is distracted. And so it's like I'm taking reality and putting this, line around distraction.
Yes, you are. That's what we do.
Yeah. what is distraction?
Right.
You know, jumbled thought. I'm like, you know, it's fascinating because
Yeah, it is
looking
fascinating.
deeper into that word or that feeling or the experience, it's like, what is that? You know, I can't
That's
find.
well, this is the very trippy thing about it, is that experience like that we would label as distraction, a moment of distraction. So somehow consciousness sees something, recognizes something that, let's call it a pattern, that it's showing up as a kind of a pattern, like just like you would see a pattern that's shaping itself as a tree or a flower or a dog or a human, right? It's a pattern that's being perceived, isn't it?
Well, it's a
And
pattern
since
of the pandemic and the politics and the election. That's like it's
well,
putting
those are just patterns too, right?
right,
Right. Like there's, I mean, from one perspective, yeah, there's something called a coronavirus. It's a
right.
pattern that we're
Yeah.
observing in nature. But again, if you investigate the pattern,
Mm-hmm.
what do you end up with? I mean, the physicists know this. When you investigate the patterns of the material world, the seeming ways that matter configures itself as patterns and shapes and forms, and you start to break it down, well, what is that form made of
Mm-hmm.
physically? The patterns are seen to be patternless. It's absolutely like ambiguous what they are, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is what's really, really curious and trippy, is that any experience that we label as a human that's showing up as I feel unhappy, I'm frustrated, or whatever it is, it's like, okay, well, we just identified a pattern of our experience that we are giving a name to. Fair enough. It's part of the way reality shows up, as seemingly patterned, for sure, doesn't it? There's definitely, the seeming patterns are definitely I mean, it looks like it, doesn't it? It looks like there's such a thing, and we experience it in some ways as something distinct from
Right.
other states, let's say, or other objects. And yet again, when we investigate the patterns, like you were saying, look at the pattern you're calling distraction and investigate what it is, and it'll be receding horizon, and you won't be able to find what it is. And I remember from another conversation you and I had, where it's like you're getting the sense of like how freeing it is to notice that unpatternedness of it, the unknowability of it, because it's like then there isn't actually a thing there that you are stuck in.
Yeah.
Literally, there's not a thing there, even though it shows up as a thingness, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Right? That's what's so wild. It's like, the body shows up as a thing, a body that we can sometimes feel whatever, that we like sometimes we don't like. It's getting older, it feels healthy, unhealthy. All of it's fine. It's part of the play. And yet when you go to try to figure out what that pattern is, it's like, holy cow, it's like a body.
It's all aliveness too. So even distraction is aliveness.
Absolutely.
In a different pattern.
And doesn't it totally change the experience of it, doesn't it? When you feel it from, it's like the difference of feeling it from the perspective of the wave versus the ocean. It's so different.
Totally.
When you feel like, but when you see like thoughts are just an emanation of reality, they're not a problem. They're just an emanation of reality.
Exactly.
It's so different. And when you see yourself as an emanation of reality, well, you cease to become a problem too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Pam. It's great to hear from you. One of the things that's so helpful and just quite frankly just very convenient is that every moment, every experience, like the experience you're having right now, because there's no other experience other than what you're having right now, is the doorway into what I'm talking about. It's not, it can sound like all these ideas and thoughts that I'm sharing, but it's really quite simple. It's your experience right now. just as it is. Everything's a doorway into this infinity because everything is infinity, so everything's a doorway. This thought that you're having right now, this perception, not another one, this one, the way it looks right now, that's it. Just exactly the way it looks right now. Not one iota different. There's no other painting to behold. This is the painting you're beholding right now. You can't behold another painting. Even though what's different about this painting, it's like if you ever watched Harry Potter movies, the Harry Potter movies, all the paintings are alive. That's what's different about this painting, is everything's moving. This is an alive painting, isn't it? And you're in the painting, you're not looking at the painting. You are the painting. One of the pragmatic, if you will, kind of benefits, supreme benefits of what I'm talking about is that it's complete mental and emotional well-being. It's the end of trying to find well-being by changing our experience. And the recognition that our experience as it is complete well-being. So that is why it's complete well-being. From the perspective of the ocean.
John, I have another thought. Is it okay to share?
Please, yeah.
So the radical you're communicating is going right to the heart of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
The word radical means pertaining. Some people may already have heard this. It comes from the Latin prefix radix, I think, which means
root.
pertaining to the root.
The root.
Yeah, like a radish is a vegetable that grows at the root.
Mm-hmm.
And my Dzogchen teacher, Geshe Namjo, he's very clear, and I think the general view of Dzogchen, that you can't use duality to go beyond duality. Well, you can try, maybe in some way that it can unfold like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Dzogchen takes, in Dzogchen, the view, the path, and the goal are all the same.
Are the same, yeah.
Are the same. So
right.
There's no. It's not like you become more mindful. You become more whatever. Right. The actual revelation of this nature is ideally, if one can track with it,
right.
that occurs in the very beginning.
Right.
And the whole path in Dzogchen is just a sort of coming to rest in that,
Hmm.
embracing of that. But it's not the vision, even if it's very faint, is
Hmm.
there from the beginning,
Hmm.
and that yeah, I can see the logic of that, because otherwise it's just one is moving within the labyrinth of the dualistic framework.
Hmm.
Uh, uh,
Right.
you can
You're
become
continuing to reinforce the notion that things have independent existence and therefore require something to be done about them. Because, right, I mean, the whole assumption of, you could say, of at least one way meditation is approached is that there's a person, there's a thing called meditation, and there's a goal of meditation. Well, you've just
right.
created three versions of independent existence when in fact, you know, um, yeah, I mean, I say the true meditation is the discovery that there's only meditation. Meditation in the sense of um, that meditation is the shining forth of what's here is meditation. This is the meditation
Yeah,
of this is God's meditation.
yeah,
God is, you know, God is being what God is being in every instant. You know, the reality is being what it's being in every instant. And um, so it doesn't require something to happen, or this is happening now, isn't it? It's like this is completely on, like full force, you know, the radiating presence of this moment is obvious. It's radiating as what we call our experience. It's
yeah, yeah,
radiating as what we call our circumstance. It's radiating as what we call ourselves having experience. It's
yeah.
radiating as all of it. It's radiating what we call the act of meditation, and it's radiating what we
That,
call sitting watching television. So it's the radiation, not what it's radiating as, that is really where that's the mother lode there, to kind of see that it's like I said, it's the ocean is the ocean, whether it's showing up as a wave of meditation or a wave of non-meditation. It's still the ocean. And now if something like a practice of meditation can wake us up to see that, well, then I'm all for it, you know. But it has a tendency to, at least, I mean, I did it for a couple of decades at least, probably more like, yeah, about 2.5 decades. And I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was reinforcing the idea that, you know, when I was meditating, I was closer to the source than when I wasn't meditating, and therefore I had to meditate more. And it was like, I don't know. It's like, how come somebody didn't point out to me how untrue that is? But they didn't until they did, and then I was like, oh my God! It's like, wow, this was this was this was the very being of existence that's present. Again, you know, it's like, there you are. You get up out of bed, and there's God getting up out of bed, what we call getting up out of bed, and then you walk over to your meditation cushion, you know, and the whole act of walking over to the meditation cushion is the activity of divinity. And then sitting down on the cushion, all of it, the entire thing. It's not like something is finally going to happen when you get to that cushion and start meditating. The whole thing from the very beginning was reality. So that
yeah,
changes the whole equation.
yeah, yeah. It reminds me of what just came to mind is it's like in some of these teachings, okay, be very aware of the snake, send loving kindness to the snake,
Mhm.
learn to work work with the snake, whatever,
Mhm.
not addressing the issue that the snake actually doesn't exist.
Exactly. Right. I
That's
one time, a little time ago, I wrote something like, the real meditation is recognizing that meditation and non-meditation are the same. That's the real meditation. That they're made
and
of the
that
same thing. They're made of the nature, they're made of the basic state, like everything is. So what is non-meditation? Well, just like my conversation with Pam, it's like asking what distraction is or what clarity is. It's like, it's all this patterning, seeming patterning, that when investigated is like, we can't find the, it's a very curious thing. My students, they just scratch their head when I ask them these questions, my grad students, like when because they're psychologists, and I say, so what is anxiety made of? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I go, I'm really serious. What is it? Like, what are the particles of it? What are the elements that make up that phenomena? Because you say there's something there, what are the, when I'm talking to Pam about patterns, it's like, if we look at the, constellation in the sky, we can say that it's a patterning of light, right, in the sky that shows up in a certain way that looks like an object that we call whatever,
Yeah.
the Big Dipper.
Like the Big
So,
Dipper, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a patterning, isn't it? A way that the lights have arranged themselves in the sky. So if you take some state of mind, whether it's happiness or sadness or joy or sorrow or confusion or anxiety or whatever, and you're seeing a pattern, it's like, it's recognizable. It's like, oh my God, I feel anxious. It's really wild. Like, what am I recognizing? Like, what's actually there? And you can say, well, I feel like certain familiar physical sensations. Okay, well, but what are those physical sensations? What is that? It's very paradoxical. It's definitely something like the sugar and saltiness. It's like, it's definitely there. I know what it is. That's how I can tell you I'm feeling kind of anxious right now, or whatever, if I am. And it's like, then I go to look for it. It's like, holy cow, I can't really tell you. I don't know what it is a pattern of. I could say it's a pattern of energy, but that's really ducking the question, because I don't know what energy is either. Because energy is another pattern that I don't know what it's made of. I can say, well, it's made of consciousness. Well, what's that? What's consciousness? It's also a pattern of something. I don't know what it's made of.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, it reminds me very much in the Chan tradition, where there was a Hui Ning, and he was working in the kitchen. People who are in the meeting may remember this. And there was a competition to see who would become the successor in the lineage. And they wanted, whoever wrote the best sort of realization poem would get the job. And the monk who was considered to be on deck to take over, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but something like the mind is like a mirror, and one must be very diligent so that no dust will ever contaminate it. And the uneducated person working in the kitchen, who was not even a monk, his poem was, if there's no, if everything is empty right from the very beginning, or no beginning, just self-existing, where if it all is empty, where can the dust even collect? And then
Right.
he became the
he got the job.
That's right.
That's very cool. I love that. Yeah. Well, the dust, right? Yeah, what we call the dust, like Pam's, distraction. That's always the dust in the meditative traditions, that darn distraction, but I guess I would say the only distraction is imagining that there is distraction. But and even that isn't distraction.
My original question to you, John, today was going to be, when I'm plagued often with getting songs stuck in my head. I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's blasting. So I was going to ask you about that. Like, what is that? I mean, all right, there's this song, but it's in my head. Certainly it's not in my head. I mean, it's in there. And then it's, it just was kind of blowing my mind. I thought maybe John could elaborate on that.
Oh, that happens to me all the time. Are you kidding? because I listen to music, and I was listening to this song several times because I thought it was a cool song, and it was like it was stuck in my head last night going to sleep, like the same song. I think it's just I mean, it can sound like such a cop out to just say like I have no idea how any of that works, but honestly, it's like, I mean, the other day I as guys know, I'm a musician, and one of the things I love doing when I'm driving, listening to music, which is when I'm typically listening to music, or at least I'll listen to music when I'm writing and working and stuff too, but I'll listen to it driving, and I love harmonizing, to music, and it's something that comes very natural to me. And I've been reflecting a lot on this, like this intelligence that seems to exist, that's underlying all that we do in life, all that we're capable of doing, from the intelligence that it's like the body knows how to keep itself sitting upright and not falling over. Like how come you're not falling over? It's like that intelligence, or the intelligence of how to get up and walk and go get a glass of water from your kitchen, or the intelligence of how to speak, how to form words, how to understand words. The intelligence of, I mean, it's on and on and on, right? It's just completely endless, the intelligence underlying everything. But with respect to music, I was marveling the other day at the intelligence of being able to sing a melody, like to sing, to make sounds. Like, if I were to, unless you were just completely like tone deaf, maybe you didn't have this ability, but if I were to sing a sound like la and have you sing that sound, it's like you have no idea how to do that, but you can do it anyway. So this is intelligence. Is just, where's that intelligence coming from? It's absolutely just intrinsic to life itself, this unthinkable intelligence. It's just extraordinary. I mean, the intelligence of the body. Like, think about what the body's doing right now to keep itself alive. Heart pumping, blood coursing through arteries and veins and nourishing the cells of the body with oxygen. And if you eat some food right now, the body will turn that food, break it down into sugars, and use that to fuel the cells of the body. I mean, that is intelligence, isn't it?
Peter once said that the architecture of the body, the intricacy of the body, that's God showing off.
It's a great expression. It really is major show off. It's like, I mean, what about, like, if you cut your hand, and the wound heals over time? How?
Mm-hmm.
How does it heal?
That's right. That's amazing.
I mean,
amazing.
How does your entire immune system work? Or how about if we say that something called the brain is facilitating our conversation right now, like neural activity, how many billions of neurons, billions with a B, and trillions of connections between the neurons in the brain, firing in this like electrical storm of, like, really? Like, are you sitting back there with the controls, like making it all happen? I don't think so.
I know, it's just mind-boggling.
Come on, it's just completely stupefying. Yeah. It's just.
That's right. That's right.
I was like, it's absolutely just. It's awe-inspiring. It's all so awe-inspiring. I mean, how do the plants grow? How does photosynthesis happen? The Earth hurtling through space. How many.
That's right. That's right.
It's
that's
like,
right. That's
and
right.
the sun being perfectly in the perfect position where it warms the Earth but doesn't burn the Earth to smithereens. But if it was just a little bit further away, we would all freeze to death.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
like it's on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And you know, sometimes I mean, as a scientist, I still laugh at science. Sometimes it's like, well, like the explanation of the Big Bang, you know, where it all started, like from a material standpoint, the universe as we know it, it's like, it's hysterical. Like, okay, well, there was this explosion, like nothing suddenly exploded, this like, and created the universe. And then somehow over billions of years, that explosion turned into this conversation, evolved into this conversation, this kind of complexity of thinking and from nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, or how
But
about the way,
yeah,
you know, a baby is made inside the womb of the mother, like an egg and a sperm come together and something gets fertilized, and then cells start to divide and a nervous system starts to develop and a cardiovascular system, and it grows for 9 months in the body and then emerges out of the mother's womb, and the birth happens, and then there's a being, and then the being grows into each one of us. Like, I mean, come on.
yeah,
Like, really?
some scientists, you have to admire their dedication. They try so hard to explain things, you know, based on empirical data,
Yeah.
and to try and take that and extrapolate some ultimate causality, and yeah. So I guess some people are not comfortable not knowing. It's just a need to try and figure everything out.
Yeah, I mean, science is interesting because it's sort of like one way I describe it to my students when I teach about research methods, that I go, here's one way to look at it, is we're trying to create maps to try understand what's going on here. And in the case of my teaching, you know, psychological maps to explain the human experience. I said, and they're useful, and it seems like a worthy project to keep refining the maps and get more and more precise about what's going on, and use, excuse me, scientific methods to make them more precise. But I said, when you get right down to it, you know, what we're trying to explain here is so radically transcends all the maps that we could ever hope to throw at it. And it's like even the most basic question of why a human is the way the human is, you know, each one of us, why we are the way we are. You know, Pam, why do you love what you love? I mean, how are you possibly going to answer that? No amount of scientific study will ever reveal the answer to that question. And yet it's your life, you know, because you love what you love, you value what you value, you orient to, you're here. Why are you here? You could be somewhere else, but why are you here and having this conversation? Whereas most other people wouldn't be interested in this conversation, it seems. Which is why there's, you know,
Ago,
10 people on the call and not 10,000. It's fine. I like 10. It's a little more manageable.
Years ago, I did a workshop of Introduction to Zen weekend teaching at the Rochester Zen Center, and Roshi Philip Kaplow, he was the main teacher there. And in the room where he was giving the classes, there was a Buddha statue, and right next to it a famous statue called The Thinker by Rodin.
Rodin, yeah.
I don't know if that, yeah. And he said, Roshi Kaplow said, the reason he had those two statues next to each other is because they represent the different ways of approaching understanding. And the Buddha was just sitting very poised, very equanimous, and knowing, not conceptually, but just knowing in his heart, you know, what is true, the direct understanding or recognition. And the thinker, it's a very contracted image. He's like struggling to sort it all out, try and figure out what's going on. And it was quite a contrast. I always remember that. I think that was a very effective little image.
And the beauty, you know, the real beauty of the non-dual, if you will, is that it's all inclusive nature, of course, too, right? That it doesn't exclude the thinker.
Right.
And that's always important to remember, that
that's right.
it ultimately transcends the thinker and the contemplative. but
Right.
which is
Mhm.
nice, rather than setting up like yet another battle between the two. But
Right,
not
right.
that
That's
not
right.
that you were
That's right.
suggesting that, but yeah, it's easy for us to fall into those kind of dichotomous ways of somehow framing things. I did it for a long time, and yeah, to feel that all inclusive nature of this, that it's so freeing, because it's you just as you are. It's you just as you are. It feels like it might be a nice note to end on. Thanks, everyone. Always a joy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Thanks, everyone.